Mark Hamill wants Disney to ditch Luke Skywalker along with some other Disney executives, as well as Samuel L. Jackson getting his own spin-off series from Tulsa King. You're live with the guy every day at noon Central. I got my producer Nat over here on the mic.
Hello.
She's got her own show on our other channel, Nat and the Guy in Espanol. That's every night at 8 p.m. If you are a Spanish speaker, check it out. She does 2 stories in depth, usually one politics, one pop culture. We also have a secondary show right back here at 9:15, and that's a more politically based show. Okay, let's go right into Mark Hamill here. He wants Disney to drop Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, so Mark Hamill and why he won't return as Luke Skywalker in Star Wars franchise. I had my time.
Yeah, well, let's read a little bit about this. And it's not just Mark Hamill that has this sentiment. Behind the scenes, he has some people he thinks he would want to take over that are very politically active as well. Mark Hamill loves to bring politics into everything. Mm-hmm. That being said, there's been rumors that Disney executives have pictures of Luke Skywalker on their desk with an X across the face, meaning they want to invest in the new characters, which the new characters just aren't that good.
So Mark Hamill is in a galaxy far, far away from the Star Wars universe. This is from Deadline by Natalie Oganissen. I can't say your last name. In a recent interview with comicbook.com, the veteran actor cautioned that fans should not expect him to return as a world-weary Luke Skywalker in any forthcoming installments, and that Lucasfilm, Walt Disney Pictures would do well to hone in new faces in the franchise. He said, "I'm so grateful to George Lucas for letting me be a part of that back in the days, the humble days when George called Star Wars the most expensive low-budget movie ever made," he began. "We never expected it to become a permanent franchise and a part of pop culture like that. But my view is I had my time. I'm appreciative of that, but I really think they should focus on the future and all the new characters."
Yeah, and I really did like when they brought Mark Hamill back as a grizzled Jedi. And they did it, I believe it was on a season finale, and it was like, oh, I kind of want to watch the next season. Problem is he brought politics in at every single opportunity. And he just wasn't as good as an older actor as he was when he was young. The fact that he wants to get rid of Luke Skywalker completely, he's just trying to be Luke Skywalker forever and have nobody else attached with that name. I agree, you need to bring in new actors, but you can reset the series with Luke, Leia, and Chewbacca. Yeah.
And I'll just make a correction. It wasn't during the last series of anything. It was during The Force Awakens. So the first upgraded reinstallment from Kathleen Kennedy.
Yeah. And Kathleen Kennedy has taken over that franchise for the last 10 years and drove it into the ground with a hammer and sickle. And that being said, I would like to see a reset. It is hard to find new stars. We've been going over this the last few days. New female stars, they just don't make them like they used to. New male leads, they just don't know how to make an action hero. Is it because independent media now kind of controls the pop culture scene and they have trouble really pumping up a star without negative publicity?
I personally didn't like when they brought him back because they brought him back as a emasculated, loner who was not Luke Skywalker. And it's what a lot of the fans thought, that was the beginning of when they started to make the Force female and started ruining everything, every single character and making stories that were not interesting to anybody, least of all the fans.
Yeah, I do agree with you. But when they brought him back on the final episode and they just had a quick glimpse of him. He was old and grizzled, and you thought it was going to be this old, gristly, masculine man. Then the next season started, and they demasculinized him, and yeah, that's what kind of burned that character. You really had a good opportunity to build the characters around him.
But it wasn't during a series. They just brought him back for the movies. He wasn't in any series.
Or
was he in The Mandalorian?
Yeah, he was in something where they brought him back at the very end, and then it was the cliffhanger. Okay.
But you were never a super big Star Wars fan.
I was when I was young, but those were the original Star Wars and Ewoks. I loved the Ewok movie. Okay, that being said, let's go into the next movie, and it's Would You Pay $400 Million for this movie? It's an article we have, if you can bring it up.
Tulsa King?
No, it's the Dakota Johnson. Oh, sorry. Tulsa King is next. Let's go into that.
Yeah, so this is from Screen Rant. Tulsa King spin-off starring Samuel L. Jackson announced with new location confirmed.
Yeah, and Tulsa King is making a big hit. People really like this. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but it is getting good reviews. Sylvester Stallone is one of the leads that is kind of attached to the new administration to make America or make Hollywood great again. It's him, Mel Gibson, and what's Angelina Jolie's dad?
John Voight.
Yeah, and John Voight. They're kind of leading the restructuring of Hollywood. So Samuel L. Jackson getting attached to this series could be very good. If they do it similar to the Tulsa King, I think it will have a good reception. Why don't you read a little bit about it rather than looking up Mark Hamill?
Tulsa King spin-off starring Samuel L. Jackson has been announced with a new location confirmed alongside information about his character. Tulsa King is currently in production, with the show continuing the story of Sylvester Stallone's Dwight Manfredi as he continues his criminal operations in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The series is one of many created by Taylor Sheridan on Paramount Plus, which is also home to series like Landman, Mayor of Kingstown, and Lioness. However, the action comedy has become a major success for the platform, with season 4 already in development. Now, Deadline has confirmed that Jackson will be starring in the Tulsa King spinoff titled Nola King, which is prepared to be set up through the events of Tulsa King Season 3. Jackson's character will appear in multiple episodes of Season 3 prior to starring in the spinoff, which he'll also be executive producing.
Yeah. Oh, so he's going to be executive producer too. It's good to see actors as they start to age to really go into production, directing, and things like this. That being said, this is kind of showing the transition of Hollywood with what was Kevin Costner's series again? Yellowstone.
Also from Taylor Sheridan.
Yeah, also from Taylor Sheridan. And a lot of these series are leaving Hollywood. This one is shooting in Tulsa. The other one was shooting in Montana, I believe. So really getting a feel for different regions of the country that appeal to a different audience rather than trying to make everybody fit in a square box. When some people are round, some people are square. They are really building subcultures and emotions around these different series.
And I think Paramount Plus has done a good on betting on Taylor Sheridan, but he's the only one right now who's making anything that kind of appeals slightly to a different crowd, a more masculine crowd, I would say. But a lot of that crowd is right now it's wish fulfillment for them.
Well, also that kind of crowd is going to want traditional filmmaking. You're not going to put AI in a series like Tulsa King or Yellowstone or stuff like that. You want things that are really shot in Montana, in Tulsa, things like that, things that are a little bit gritty. The AI is really coming for Hollywood right now, and I think it's going to gut a lot of the traditional movies and things like this. There's already a rejection of the MCU or MCU, Marvel and Star Wars and things like this because it's overly produced. We're going to talk about it in a little bit with how much movies are costing these days, and it's getting a little bit ridiculous. Why don't we go into that story now?
So, would you pay $400 million for this movie? Between delays, reshoots, and rising costs, this is from The Hollywood Reporter by Pamela McClintock. This year's summer's blockbusters are racking up astronomically high price tags when factoring in marketing costs. Can the box office keep up?
Yeah, and I got this from Film Threat just before I got on the air, and I think it's a dirty little secret. Hollywood has always been a place to launder money, and it's not to say all movies are laundering money, obviously not, but a big portion of it is, and that's where a lot of these budgets are going. It's also a way to gatekeep the industry. If they make it appear every movie costs $100 million to make, and the fact is they want it to cost $100 million to make, and then they get exclusive rights to the theaters, so smaller budget films don't have the ability to distribute into a large distribution network like AMC, like Regal Cinemas and things like this. So it's a way to gatekeep. And as filmmaking becomes cheaper and cheaper, it becomes harder and harder for them to gatekeep. So they need to keep the budgets of these movies up so they can say, we have something special to offer.
And it's crazy with stuff like Snow White, for example, where it cost about 200 million, but actually with marketing even more. It's like, yes, it was all the reshoots, and they had to change the storyline a bunch of times, and Rachel Zegler cost them most of that money probably as well. But what they produce and what actually comes out in theaters, a lot of the times you're like, why, how did it cost this much money? Where is it going?
Well, I think Snow White had to be all the reshoots and things like that. But yeah, where did that money go? And the marketing budget was huge for that. They had to try to counter market all the bad publicity they were getting for that thing. And a lot of the times when they're calculating the cost of a movie, they're not including the marketing budget. So you're having these astronomical numbers, and very rarely is the marketing budget included in the bottom line. They really try to manipulate numbers and things like this. Okay, why don't we read a little bit about it?
Do you want me to start from the beginning?
I just start from the beginning and then skip and go down a little bit.
On Paramount's storied lot in 2018, Studio Brass and partner Skydance gave the go-ahead for Tom Cruise to make 2 more Mission Impossible movies following the massive success of Fallout. No one taking part in that decision some 7 years ago could have known what was in store for Hollywood, much less the world or the minefield they would have to cross. Because they go specifically on Mission Impossible, because no one will divulge what the original greenlit number was for the 2 Mission Impossible films starring Cruise, but the combined cost was a net $700 million before marketing. Now in theaters, Final Reckoning's budget is $400 million after subtracting tens of millions of dollars in tax incentives and rebates from the various countries they included on its globe-trotting shooting schedule. As a way of comparison, Fallout's net budget was anywhere from $200 million to $250 million.
Yeah, and it's a little bit crazy because we've talked about this George Lucas series that never got made that was kind of supposed to be a reset of Star Wars before Disney bought the IP and the property, and it was estimated it would cost $40 million per episode. He had written 60 episodes, so it would have been multiple seasons. They said it was going to cost $40 million, and that was too much to put into production. But now with the cost of the way things cost, that seems somewhat reasonable when I compare it to other TV series and other even just straight to streaming movies. We were talking about something the other day that was $250 million straight to streaming.
And with Mission Impossible and these latest ones and with the stunts, it's understandable that that's the cost, because that's what they're doing. They're putting stuff that you would never even imagine, practical effects, into film. But then in the article, she goes on to say, turning to the list of the most expensive films, Final Reckoning would come in behind 2015's Star Wars: The Force Awakens, $447 million, which was not worth it, and 2018's Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, $432 million. And like Final Reckoning, a slew of mega-budget tentpoles saw their budgets dramatically impacted by pandemic and strikes, including Avatar: Way of Water, but a lot of these, and Jurassic World Dominion. But it's funny that a lot of these, like Star Wars, Jurassic World, the ones that she's putting here with the highest price tags, were actually, like, the original ones, number one, are way better. Number two, use practical effects, and they did it on shoestring budgets because they were just testing the waters, and they were most kind of considered, what would today be considered indie filmmakers, that were able to do so much with way less money.
Well, this is one of the reasons I'm really... that the one thing that does excite me about AI, even though I'm against it in a lot of aspects, is it is going to be great for proof of concept for people making things online, creating their little own IP and copywritten projects that people can really watch, fans can kind of get behind, and then they have an in with the studios to get them functionally made and things like this.
Yes, but the excuses for these huge budgets that are going all to CGI and VFX and, everything, marketing, everything but the actual, importance of the movie, the storyline, and the creativity, just proves that they're throwing money at things that they...
Well, this is the thing. I'm watching movies, like a lot of different movies, and I can't tell the difference between a $40 million movie and a $400 million movie. If it's properly written, you don't really notice like when the budget is a lot less. Like you get a camera, you get stuff like this. Sinners cost $90 million, which is actually cheap in comparison these days, but it used a lot of new technology when it came to actually merging different film stocks and things like this and using new innovative cameras. They could have easily made Sinners for probably $20 million if they would have just used traditional filmmaking tools. And man, just write good scripts, make them on the cheap, and they have no problem with competing with these $400 million movies, other than the fact that they can't get into theaters because these major studios are getting these theaters to sign contracts where they're going to exclusively carry certain movies. They're kind of blocking out cheaper movies that are better written, better made, and just better budgeted.
And Universal says, "Good afternoon. How are you?" So how are you?
Oh, who's at the Universal? I've never seen that name on here.
Me either.
Is that Universal Studios? I used to live by Universal Studios. Well, welcome to the stream.
Yes, welcome. And Universal says most wide release movies have tax incentives. Yes, they do. And that's the thing as well. Like a lot of the more indie, at least in Vancouver, I'm going to use that as an example. When, for example, you look at
and we used to live in Vancouver.
We used to live in Vancouver, Canada. But even like
we worked in that industry, so that's why we use it as an example. Often.
Yes, we worked in the Vancouver film industry for a while. But just taking that for example, like indie filmmakers in Vancouver don't get those same incentives or that same support for the city. It's mostly for the bigger studios that are coming from the US and they want their big budget, big production movies. But whenever it's people that are trying to make something different or creative, the incentive is still not there. The permitting is insane, essentially.
Well, I also worked in union and in non-union films, and this is where I got a first-hand look. Like, there's a lot of money laundering going here on every level, from studio heads down to the director that's making it. The director, if it's a bigger name director on an indie film, he's going to get to pick his own grip crew, his own lighting crew, and he very often owns these little crews, and then he overcharges for everything. And that's just one example. But it goes on especially on the marketing level, because marketing is such a big part of the budget. It usually doubles the cost of the actual film, that it's very easy to launder and push money around in marketing budgets and things like this.
In our opinion.
In my opinion. Yeah, in my opinion. Well, in a lot of people's opinion.
Yes, in Logic, but in Logic's opinion.
There was an example of, I was watching a documentary. I can't remember the name, but it was kind of about the worst movie ever made. And it got a lot of funding, I believe, from overseas, Russian oligarchs and things like this. And it was well known that that movie was made to launder money.
Was it about The Room?
I can't remember the exact. It was like a year ago I watched it.
Okay.
But it was a horrible documentary and it was a horrible movie. Okay. Do you want to go into the next
sure.
article here?
So Dakota Johnson trying to save her butt. Dakota Johnson, this is from Variety, from Zach Sharf, says, Dakota Johnson says Madam Web flop wasn't my fault. Decisions are made in Hollywood by people who don't have a creative bone in their body.
Well, I do agree with her, and I think she is right, but I do think actors have to take responsibilities for the roles and where they're going. Now, I do understand at a certain point you're an actor, you just want to keep working, and especially some of these are just, they're making them for paychecks, but you can't complain about the end result of the movie when you're the one that signed on to it, you're the one that wrote the script, you're the one that you usually are informed, especially if you're a bigger actor or actress. This doesn't go for smaller actors or actresses, but if you're a bigger actor, you usually know who's going to direct the movie, who's involved, how they're going to market it, things like this. So some actors are very cautious on the way they make movies, who they make movies with, things like this.
But I mean, I do think it's brave that she at least came out to say what I think most people are thinking.
Yeah, and like I said, she's completely right, without a doubt. And that movie was a flop, and yeah. Why don't we read a little bit about it?
So Dakota Johnson recently told the Los Angeles Times on her Materialists press tour, another one I don't understand why she signed into, that Madam Web flopping with critics and audiences wasn't her fault. The Sony-backed comic book movie was a notorious punching bag in winter 2024, earning a dismal $43 million at the domestic box office and an 11% on Rotten Tomatoes. Johnson headlined the film as Cassandra Webb, and then she said, "It wasn't my fault."
Well, one second, and this is just kind of going into putting these females in these unbelievable roles, which nobody's really going to believe them in. Now, we did but we talked about Ballerina yesterday, and that was a little bit more believable because it's already set in an unbelievable universe like John Wick, so it kind of set up for it. Plus, she was recruited at a young age through a traumatic experience to become an assassin, so maybe it's a little bit more believable.
Well, Madame Web is about superheroes, but
Yeah.
yes. And she says, it wasn't my fault, Johnson said about the movie, that there's this thing that happens now where a lot of creative decisions are made by committee or made by people who don't have a creative bone in their body. And it's really hard to make art that way or make something entertaining that way. And I think, unfortunately, with Madam Web, it started out as something and turned into something else. And I was just sort of along for the ride at that point. But that happens. Bigger budget movies fail all the time. And it is true, but at the same time, this committee is usually a committee that is mostly too aware of, what will they say, and being, politically correct and
they're
following tropes that nobody cares about.
Well, they basically, turn down my, maybe I'll move my mic away a little bit. I was just checking it. My volume was way too loud the other day. Okay, what I was going to say here, what'd you just say? I forgot what I was going to say. So
But this committee that she's talking about and that she doesn't want
that's what I was going to say. They're basically trying to check boxes.
Yes.
Hollywood's
And it's not even the boxes about filmmaking. It's the boxes about, social, cultural issues.
Yeah, it's involving politics behind the scenes by having certain boxes checked and things like this, not just with DEI, but within the script and a lot of other things. And she is right. This was like a bigger IP franchise that you're just kind of along for the ride. It's going to be cookie cutter, so you could have expected it to be bad from the beginning. But some directors and stars are using these to get paychecks so they can go make their own franchises and things like this. A good example of this was the director from Sinners. And
Ryan Coogler.
Yeah, Ryan Coogler. He now did Sinners, which he wants to be a standalone. He got away from Marvel, Black Panther, all that. He really used the budget to innovate and put new technologies within Sinners. I did watch the behind the scenes of Sinners, and it was pretty fascinating, actually.
And I got something else to say about Dakota Johnson in a second, but Universal says speaking of Sinners had a $90 million budget plus distribution, everything else, total budget of $225 million minus $25 million in tax incentives. Sinners thus far made $352 million, $152 million profit thus far. Yeah, and that's a good example of.
Well, and I've been talking.
Right.
I haven't seen Sinners because I just haven't had the time. But
and we're in Mexico, so it didn't get released as wide as in the States.
But I am excited about that movie. I want to see that movie. I've talked about it almost every week. Every week, something new's coming out about it, or something new to me. The way they promoted it with all the different movie posters was very interesting. The behind the scenes and the making of that is absolutely fascinating. If you haven't seen that, go on YouTube, check it out. There was something else I was going to say about that movie.
Sinners, the budget, done right. Marketing. Universal also says, not Universal Studios. First time here. Nice to meet you both. Nice to talk shop with you.
Good to see you.
Same, and thank you for being here. And also says, regarding money laundering, there are a lot of affiliations and partnerships within the industry.
Oh, there is a ton. It's a buddy industry.
Yes.
For sure.
And it was that way since the beginning. I mean,
and there's always backroom deals. So I give you this contract, you own this production company, you're gonna overestimate the cost, give a behind the scenes cash deal or kickback to the other person.
And I mean, especially when the big studios were even just starting, like it was starting with MGM and then Universal and like Walt Disney Studios, all of that Hollywood, conglomerate, even the way they made the Oscars, that was to kind of, kiss each other's butts.
Yeah, and that was the other thing I was going to say about Sinners. Big Hollywood didn't like Sinners. They came out with a series of hit pieces on the first couple weeks. The problem is that movie is quickly becoming a cult classic, much like Dusk to Dawn, which, is from a different era and from a different director, but it's not dropping off week to week. It was staying steady, which was really unheard of in the modern era, or at least recently. Lilo and Stitch isn't having the fall off either, and neither did Minecraft. So, but for more of an independent film, I realized it was a $90 million budget, so it was a little higher. But people are really loving that movie, and I think when it comes to streaming, people are going to be even more exposed to that movie, and it will become a cult classic.
And it has a different storyline. It has characters in situations you usually wouldn't see. It was way more creative than anything that Disney
and it was a bit of a
Universal have done in a while.
It was a bit of a period piece, which gave it this, even when you're watching the trailer and the making of it, it just gives it something special.
And it was also for adults, which is rare that
And they did it R-rated, which is perfect. Don't try to get a bigger audience with PG-13.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And it was distributed, at least in the States, by Warner Brothers, who's not doing so well, but they did good with that one.
Well, and I think it's getting such big reception when it goes to streaming. I really do think it's probably going to become a cult classic. Ryan Coogler said it was supposed to be a standalone. That's how he shot it, and I like that thinking of it.
Yes.
But the studios are going to come with big money, and the fact that he's publicly stated he doesn't want to make another one is going to give him a lot of negotiating leverage going into a sequel if he decides to do that.
And I just also wanted to mention, I mean, just going back to Dakota Johnson really quickly, just to give a quick opinion. So she is a Nepo baby, like, as we know, Melanie Griffith, etc.
Well, I don't know her too much.
She's Melanie Griffith's daughter.
Oh, okay. I do know Melanie Griffin. She's from my time.
Yes. So this is the daughter, started off in the industry pretty...
Well, and Melanie Griffin was married to Kurt Russell, I believe.
I know she was married to Antonio Banderas. That's more from my time.
But, maybe she was just marrying superstars left and right.
But what I was going to say about Dakota Johnson is, yes, she got like a head start in the industry, to put it lightly. But I do like that she's always kind of been a bit more outspoken. I feel maybe because she feels more comfortable in the position she is with talking back to the industry itself. She was one of the first ones that I knew shot back at Ellen DeGeneres when Ellen was like, oh, you didn't invite me to your party. And she was like, yeah, I did twice. You weren't there. And she's been less outspoken lately. And she's been in a lot of interesting franchises. Let's say it like that. But I do think at least it's good that she's talking out about this and about creativity itself, because a lot of actors would usually have not said anything about it.
Okay, we're going to go into Ballerina next. And it had its pre-opening, so this isn't the full ticket sales, but let's go into the article really quick.
So Ballerina dances to 3.75 million in previews and great 93% audience score equal to John Wick 4.
So yeah, and what I was saying about this, I kind of compared it to the Karate Kid before it came out, where Karate Kid did everything right by the book, meaning they put Jackie Chan in there, they put the original Karate Kid from the original series. They were coming off a high of Cobra Kai and the YouTube series, which got signed to Netflix. So it really had a chance to really succeed, drawing from multiple audiences, a traditional generation, which was my demographic from the original Karate Kid, and the newer generation of Cobra Kai. They just made a bad movie. And once the Rotten Tomato scores started coming out, people weren't that interested to go see it. And once the reviews from the independent media started coming out, it really helped kill that movie in fast fashion. Ballerina had done all the right things as well. It looks like they may have actually made a good movie here, though. So I'm really hoping it does well. So far, the problem is it's only made $3.5 million in its in previews or pre-release, and it is a little bit disappointing, but the reviews are also coming back and the reviews are good. So I'm really hoping for a good weekend for this movie. I said about this actress, she's one of the more modern actresses that is beginning to break through. Hollywood has a real trouble with making new mega superstars. She's not quite a mega superstar. She is a big actress right now, but in the modern era, I can't even think of a huge actress anymore.
And the actress in Ballerina is Ana de Armas.
Can you think of anybody that's a huge actress that's from the new generation?
I mean, they tried to do it with Margot Robbie. She kind of fell off after Barbie. And she's older as well. All the franchise leaders?
Yeah. All the male actors, they're reusing these 60 and 70-year-olds now because they have more name brand value and people are into the nostalgia. They were once superstars, and they're just trying to drag their careers out as long as they can because they can't make new superstars like they used to.
Well, they also tried to do it with Brie Larson with the Marvel universe.
Oh man, they tried hard with Brie Larson.
They're also now with Thunderbolts. They might be trying to do the same with. Wow, my brain doesn't work right now.
Oh, the blonde actress from Thunderbolts.
I'm like your Jamie.
Yeah, she did a lot of independent films, and I was hyped to her career
Lawrence Pugh.
Yeah, Lawrence Pugh. Long before she became into the mainstream or into Marvel, I knew who she was. I thought she was a pretty good actress, but for some reason, she just doesn't strike me as a megastar.
No, and she fits like the profile better for an indie movie actress, in my opinion.
I think every time she does do an indie movie, even if the movie's kind of crappy, Midsummer's Night's Dream, was that the name of it?
Huh?
Midsummer's Night's Dream? It was a weird name like
Midsummer.
that. Yeah, Midsummer. She was really good in that. Everything I seen her before she got really big, I really liked. Even in Thunderbolts, she was the highlight of that. I just don't think people are going to see her on a movie poster and say, I'm going to go see that movie because she's in it, like a Leonardo DiCaprio or a Tom Hardy or a Denzel Washington. These people drive ticket sales and can justify the mega millions that these studios are paying them. Okay, let's go.
And Universal says, and I also pre-checked this because I'm like your Jamie for Joe Rogan. Universal says, I agree. Sinners added more theaters every weekend from the second weekend to the fifth weekend, and now is slowing down and will be out of theaters within the next 2 weeks, but it stayed on there for a while. And then Universal also says, Kurt Russell is and always has been married to Goldie Hawn. They're still madly in love with each other, true romance. And I actually looked up Melanie Griffith's ex-spouses.
You are right.
Which has been Don Johnson, Stephen Bauer, then Don Johnson again, and then Antonio Banderas.
Don Johnson was from my time, and
You're probably like confusing those two.
Yeah. I really like Don Johnson. Even as an older actor, he's transitioning okay. They're not using him in big roles, obviously, but I thought he was good. And thank you to Universal for commenting. Usually we have Rafa or Walker, our two, what would you say, the two main people that always comment. Sometimes I don't have comments, and it's hard to motivate at that point. So it's nice to have somebody new.
Yes, thank you for joining the conversation, Universal. Do you want to move on to?
I hate talking about this trial, but when I was going through pop culture news of the day, I put them in just in case I didn't get more news. I actually had enough not to talk about it, but I left him in. He's here, so let's talk about it.
So this is from Variety. Ethan Schanfeld says, Judge scolds Diddy for nodding vigorously to the jury, threatens to remove him from courtroom.
And this was taken as jury intimidation. And the fact that he keeps doing it, I don't know. There's not cameras in the courtroom. So they also have the option, rather than taking him out of the courtroom, of not sequestering the jury, but putting the jury in its own private room and things like that so they can't be intimidated. I would rather see that, even if he is intimidating the jury. I don't think you can just take a defendant out of the courtroom and expect the trial to kind of go on without them there, kind of coring off the jury behind a box. I would prefer that, even though I don't like Diddy and I don't like a lot of things that are going on with him. I do think he's guilty on a lot of charges, but a lot of the things, when this case first started going, it looks like it was going to fall apart. I haven't been following it too closely, but I do get updates, and people are saying they're going to be able to convict him on 2 of the 9 charges, and they only need 2 for the RICO Act to stick. So I'm going to be interested to see when the actual verdict comes back.
And let's see what he was actually doing, because I think...
And intimidating a jury, well, that wouldn't be beyond him, especially with all the things. Even before this trial came up, before all the allegations, he was known for intimidating people. He was in that beef from my time with East Coast, West Coast beef with Tupac. So violence has always been a tool of business for Puff Daddy.
And I think he still maybe doesn't fully understand what's going on, because he probably still thinks he's, the big boss. But
I think he knows what's going on at this point.
I know, but like trying to still do that and to be that figure. So Sean Diddy Combs was put on warning during his moving people from one side to another without their consent trial, as the judge overseeing the courtroom scolded him for making facial expressions at the jurors. I was very clear there should be no facial expressions to the jury, and I could not have been clearer, Judge Aaron Subramanian told Combs' attorneys during the lunch break on Thursday. There was a line of questioning where your client was nodding vigorously and looking at the jury, he said, adding that it was absolutely unacceptable. There should be no efforts to have any interactions with this jury, said Subramanian, asking Combs' attorney, Mark Agnifilio, if it would happen again. No, Your Honor, it's not going to happen again, Agnifilio replied. The judge said if Combs could not comply with his order, I would give an instruction to the jury, or it could result in the exclusion of your client from the courtroom.
Okay, that's enough on the Diddy trial. There's going to be constant updates. I'll bring them once in a while. We usually add it into the political section.
Yes.
But sometimes when I'm gathering pop culture news, especially on a daily basis, especially early on, I'll just grab every single story to make sure I have enough. Today, there was quite a bit of pop culture news. Yesterday as well. It was a big day for pop culture. Okay, let's go into this.
Some from the Hollywood Reporter, John Wick boss Chad Stahelski gets candid about franchise. My process is effed. The rule-busting writer-director of the 1 billion franchise comes out guns blazing in a question and answer about his studio battles, the action industry, and all things Wick, from this week's spin-off Ballerina to John Wick 5 to Kane.
Yeah, he's the writer, director. He's involved in probably every step of the filming process. So the fact that he's saying he's having a messed up film process, this kind of reminds me of me trying to learn different kinds of filmmaking. I shot something about the Ronald Reagan speech.
Yes.
I put on the chat. First, I didn't know how to edit, so I was like, okay, let me put some political speeches on here.
I'm the editor for the channel. You're the pre-production.
And then I tried to shoot myself in the beginning, giving an intro. And I was like, I just want to try new things. I put all kinds of lighting, this and that. Nothing worked. The thing looks like crap. But but even on set, some directors, some producers go in 3 shots for the day, and then they're done. It's quick. It's clean. You're out from production early. And then there's other directors where they will they're only going to use 3 scenes for the day, but they'll shoot each one 10 times, and it makes your day twice as long. A 12-hour shift turns into a 22-hour shift sometimes. So I always did like a director that was more formulaic, because when I worked on set, it would mean I was out early. Mm-hmm. But very often, if you want to get a good movie, you have to try new things, and it doesn't always work. So sometimes chaos does work better. I mean, we're from Canada, and this isn't movie making, but the Canadian government is very structured and you don't have any freedoms because they're so structured. In Mexico, it's freedom through chaos. So I view this director kind of as Mexico, freedom through chaos. And yeah, why don't we read a little bit about it?
I just found it's funny. His name is Chad.
Well, and he's going to become very, very big. Even he's already big, but John Wick universe is expanding. John Wick has already had a lot of success. I believe it's Lionsgate. I believe it's Lionsgate.
Yes.
Is expanding that universe into Ballerina, but we've talked about the news about all the different spin-off characters, the potential TV series that's going to come from that. It looks like they may have nailed Ballerina. Even if it doesn't have a big box office, if it is just a strong movie that people don't go to watch, doesn't make a good box office, but it adds to the IP and the universe, it won't drag down the IP like how they do with Star Wars, how they do with the Marvel universe now. One movie is dragging down the other movie, which is dragging down the comic books as far as Marvel goes.
Yes, they destroy their entire universe.
Yeah, Disney's just all about destroying their IPs.
And in my opinion, DC did the exact same thing. Star Wars as well. All of them did the same thing. But John Wick creator Chad Stahelski, I think, is attempting one of the trickiest pivots in Hollywood, turn a series of hit movies with a dead hero into a broader franchise. His 4 John Wick films, starring Keanu Reeves as a stoic Ronin gunslinger, have been a rousing success for Studio Lionsgate. But his last effort, 2023's John Wick Chapter 4, ended off its world-weary protagonist in a finale that felt perfectly fitting. After the film grossed nearly $500 million, Lionsgate and Stahelski suddenly had a high-class problem. John Wick, the franchise, clearly has a lot more film left in it, while John Wick character was seemingly 6 feet under.
Well, this is the right way for them to go. John Wick, you keep making more John Wicks, it's going to get played out. When you start putting 5, 6, 7 behind a title, it's like, what are you doing here? So expand the universe and create new characters, new storylines, things like this, especially when the audience wants it. So,
but that's the main problem. Like, that's the main thing. If the audience
wants it, and they obviously do want it at this point. Okay, let's go into, what do you have, Tom Cruise or Ridley Scott?
Tom Cruise.
Okay, let's go into Tom Cruise
This
here.
is from Variety. Tom Cruise awarded Guinness World Record after doing 16 burning parachute jumps during Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning filming.
Well, we watched a lot of behind the scenes. We talked about this movie a lot. When we actually made the review of this movie, nobody was interested in it.
Yeah.
I was a little bit disappointed in the movie. You liked it a lot, but the first hour was too slow to me and it drew me out of the movie. That being said, his commitment to filmmaking, whether it's Top Gun actually flying planes or the stunts in Mission Impossible, more and more things keep coming out. The amount of stunts he did for this movie was pretty amazing. I didn't realize he did 16 parachute jumps, burning parachute jumps. So
Yes.
good on Tom Cruise. And he's starting to get a lot of awards for the stunts he's doing and things like this. And they need to give it to him now because he's going to age out of doing his own stunts pretty soon. So it's great to give him recognition. Well, he can still get recognition. Also, what happens if one of these stunts goes wrong? You're not going to be able to give him an award if he, God forbid, passes away or something like that.
True. But I mean, he just seems like this undefeatable man. He's actually done a lot of training and he's actually done the commitment necessary to be able to do all this, which is something rare from anyone in Hollywood nowadays regarding anything.
Even before he was doing stunts, I remember when he was doing The Last Samurai. I actually really liked The Last Samurai. A lot of people didn't, but I remember watching the making of that movie, and he was really committed to actually learning sword fighting and things like this. He had a full workout regimen specifically geared towards the sword fighting. So, yeah, he's always been committed even before he really jumped in. He's known for doing all of his own stunts for his movies. So.
And I think it's good he kind of pivoted away from talking so much about his personal life and religion and into talking about filmmaking, wanting to always improve his craft, which is something I think no actor takes it as a craft anymore.
Yeah,
especially the newer ones, they don't see it as a craft.
Well, in his next movie, he's going to do his own stunts as well. So he's got at least one more, and that's Top Gun, the next Top Gun. So he's going to be flying all the planes in there, things like that.
And I just think it's admirable.
There was one more thing I did want to say about him.
Parachutes.
No.
Stunts.
I guess we can move on, but.
And he's kept alive the importance of actual stunts.
Yeah.
And for some people as well, because they, a lot of the time, do all the things and get none of the glory.
Well, stunt people are starting to get recognition for the first time. The Oscars, I think, has a Stuntman Award now, which is fantastic to see. When I was living in Canada, I used to teach at an MMA gym. I used to teach jiu-jitsu, but that particular gym, there was a lot of stunt people from the Vancouver film industry. So I knew a lot of them personally, and they just don't get the recognition they sometimes deserve.
Mm-hmm. So Universal says, I agree, John Wick is very successful. It has been profitable with every movie because it gives people what they want to see, which is not something movies usually do. And Universal says Tom Cruise lost money with part 1 and will lose money with part 2. That is in theaters as well. Tom also did close-ups as well in this movie in lieu of paying other actors to do it. Cost-cutting move. Tom Cruise is the last action star. Tom has already started filming Top Gun 2. Exclusive, they are not making another Mission Impossible.
Yeah,
with him at least.
What was the movie?
I think they're going to try to milk it still.
What was the movie, The Unforgettables?
What movie?
Where they put all the action stars. Stallone did.
Hold on.
Why can't I think of the movie? I watched them. They put a couple MMA fighters. Randy Couture was in there as well. Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was ridiculous how many action stars they put in there. I don't know if Tom Cruise was ever in there, but they really should have put him in there because he is on that level of mega action star now.
He's a bit younger than all of them.
Well, he's not a bit younger than all of them. He's the same age as some of them. Yeah, because Jason Statham was in it.
60, isn't he?
Jason Statham was in there. Jason Statham has to be about the same age as Tom Cruise. Okay, well, let's continue to go to the next story. And the next story actually doesn't have an article, but I was watching Film Threat.
Expendables?
Yeah, the Expendables. What did I say?
I don't know.
Yeah, it was definitely the Expendables. How I forgot that, I
Sylvester
don't know.
Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Denzel Washington.
Okay,
Tom Cruise are also in the... oh, no.
Oh, it says and Tom Cruise, doesn't it?
No, but it's just saying that they also have continued to star in action movies. So yeah, sometimes because we do a lot of different topics in news and people, we sometimes forget people's
I forget a
names
lot of
and
things.
stuff.
Like I'm doing an hour pop culture, then we do an hour of politics, the amount of research that goes into both of those shows. And then you have to write 2 scripts because you talk about 2 stories in depth on your Spanish channel.
And memorize them.
And then you trying to speak Spanish and English, even though Spanish is your primary language.
Yes.
You forget a lot of words.
Yes, I do.
Because you're talking to me in English all day.
Yeah, people ask me if someone suggested I should go to the neurologist because I forget things, but it's because I'm trying to think of the word in Spanish and not say it in English, and vice versa in English. But yes, on this show, I'm more like your Jamie, researching stuff.
Oh yeah, and I'm a complete introvert, and me going on camera, like I did not want to do it. The good thing about doing 3 shows a day, because I don't talk when I'm off of camera. Yes. Even to you, we very rarely talk.
Yes. And you also did jujitsu, and I've been hit in the head.
Yeah, we'll debate on certain subjects that I want to talk about later on the show.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's good practice going on camera 3 times a day, and I think that's why I keep it up rather than have a day off. Okay, let's go into...
and quickly, Universal says... Expendables, yes, thank you. I looked it up. And also says Tom Cruise was asked and said no.
Oh, that's why.
I think he's younger than they are.
And you know, the Expendables, it's not that it's the greatest movie, but it's this ensemble cast, and it had to be just a good time filming it, things like that. And it kind of...
Or a headache, because they might all have giant egos.
Yeah,
as well.
But it also puts your name in that era of movie making, meaning they're kind of paying homage to all that older action heroes. So... Okay, that being said, I was watching Film Threat earlier. Great show. If you don't watch it, definitely watch it. Chris Gore and...
Alan Ng.
Alan Ng. Alan Ng is my favorite. I don't know how I just forgot his name.
Because again, you've been hit in the head one too many times.
They were talking about AI. They actually used the article that we did from yesterday. But Alan Ng made a very good point, and he was talking about they think mainstream audiences will really reject AI actors if they are put in films, especially in starring roles. I agree. Alan Ng said, yeah, but there is an industry where that will be very successful, and that is the adult industry.
Oh, you went to AI. Sorry.
And he said not the children's industry, but the adult industry. And I agree. AI actresses will work in the adult industry. But Chris Gore said it would work in the children's industry too, and I completely agree. I don't think kids, especially young kids, are going to care if they're AI or not. So.
But it comes into, again, my main thing with AI, the whole creativity and newer people not even having to learn or think on how to actually do things, which already is happening. We see it in Disney. We see it, there's a dearth of creativity. Nobody knows how to do anything anymore. Nobody knows how to tell the story that's not, the familiar, like, 3-act structure.
But nobody's really talking about the other thing. Yeah, I think AI actresses and actresses will play well with children. But
that sounds weird.
But cartoons, AI is going to completely take out animation in a way. How are you even going to know if it's human animated or not, other than the fact they're telling you it is?
I think people that care would know, but that's what would make me the saddest, because animation, especially hand-drawn animation, the original that has been completely lost, that people have even forgotten almost existed. I was watching stuff about Snow White, like the original Snow White yesterday. I've done a lot of research on Snow White, and just like the craftsmanship and from the paint girls to the actual animators to their having to redo scenes to having to rework an eyelash, like all that stuff is being completely lost. And the fact that they've moved away from it, and at least for the more mainstream, the stuff that everybody watches, is getting us complacent to the loss of actual art and actual artists. And I don't like it.
Okay, let's go into The Gardener with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Film Threat was also talking about this movie, and it did not look good. They talked about it, then I went to go watch the trailer on YouTube, did a little bit of research. I liked Van Damme in the part, so I've always been a Van Damme fan. He fell off for decades, but he has a look now as an older person where he can play an old, grizzled, tough guy. And he looked good in the role. The problem is the movie didn't look good in general. It looks like a cheap knockoff of John Wick, and we were just talking about John Wick. But that being said, it was good to see Van Damme in this kind of role, and it's showing casting directors that what roles he can possibly play now. For an old guy, he still looks like he can kick ass and take names, which is good.
Which is a lot of HRT, but
well, not just HRT. I was watching some fitness influencer, but they were talking about the end of injectable. I don't want to say it on YouTube, but they have a pill now that represses one of your genes that prevents you from growing muscle, so you can grow unlimited muscle now. And they've tested it on monkeys, dogs. It worked phenomenal. Yeah, I know.
And I guess animal testing, we talked about it recently.
But this, you know what this kind of sounded like? It sounded like Ozempic for men. And there were, because this fitness influencer was so hyped on it. And I was like, this is going to be Ozempic for men. And Ozempic had so many negative side effects that are just now coming out. But the industry is making so much money off of it. They really try to repress a lot of the studies. So it's causing cancer, or allegedly, in my opinion, it may be causing cancer. And I would be very hesitant to take a drug like that builds you unlimited muscle without it having massive research. And I would even wait decades. I'll probably be dead by the time I'd be willing to take it.
No, but again, like it's the same as with AI. It's the taking the shortcuts. It's the not wanting to do the work. It's the losing even the knowledge on how to do the work, how to get muscles, how to train.
Oh, yeah.
How to draw, how to anything. Like we're getting too used to shortcuts that when they take them away, or if they ever take them away, we'll be useless meat bags living on a planet that's trying to self-immolate, but whatever.
Oh, yeah. I'm not going to do the last story because that was actually a political story. I added it in case I didn't have enough stories for today, but I did.
So Universal says Expendables 3 and 4 lost a ton of money. Speaking of Jean-Claude Van Damme, as a franchise, it has lost over 150 million. They will not be making any more. I think the concept was good. The actual execution was not. But
The amount it had to cost to pay all those actors had to be insane.
that too. And then Universal asks, did I miss the Star Wars topic conversation? It was at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. It was at the very beginning, right off the top. It was about Mark Hamill wanting Disney to drop Star Wars. And a lot of executives actually, it was in interviews or a documentary on their desk, people seeing pictures of Luke Skywalker with an X through it. So a lot of people may be thinking Disney is giving Mark Hamill specifically this talking point to try to say Star Wars needs to invest in new characters and abandon the past, abandon Skywalker, Princess Leia, and things like this. I completely disagree. I think it's a burned IP at this point, but there are ways they can reset it by using George Lucas's lost scripts. He wrote 60 of them. They were fully flushed out. It's rumored it would cost $40 million an episode to make, and they're R-rated, geared towards adults. That's one way to reset the series. Another option is, again, R-rated, geared towards adults. Ryan Reynolds wants something like that as well. So another possible avenue. And the third possible avenue is to just reset with new actors, Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker and things like this. Mark Hamill would not want that because...
The Harry Potter way.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Well, there is some avenues, like the IP may seem like it's dead, but it is possible for a reset, possibly.
But Mark Hamill has completely burned himself. I think with at least most of the fans, he was almost. Yeah. I mean, at the end, I think because they had to beat him down to get there. But at the end, he was very pro the Force is female, very pro kind of working with Kathleen Kennedy. Maybe now he's realizing it might have been a mistake. But in the political opinions.
Well, but Kathleen Kennedy behind the scenes drove politics like to every actor and actresses, and just politics destroyed Star Wars as a franchise almost.
And bringing in and making it about trying to use it as a vehicle for social change and feminism and political opinions, and chastising its original fans and like just beating them down to the point where they were no longer interested. I would think it might be pretty hard unless George Lucas fully comes back with his script, or they do bring in.
But even George Lucas seems captured at this point. He seems completely on board with Kathleen Kennedy, which is.
But at the beginning, he was speaking out against it.
Okay, well, let's go into some production talk now.
Yes, and Universal says, from what I heard, Mark said that he will not return to play the role of Luke Skywalker. Yeah. And Rafa says, let's all pretend the new movies don't exist. I think that's what most people want to do.
Well, it's funny because the 3 reboots George Lucas did at the time I hated, but they don't look, the prequels, they don't look so bad now when I'm comparing it to.
Well, they're from my era. So actually those were the ones I started with because I was younger.
Well, and the actress they had in it, Natalie Portman, phenomenal. She went on to do a lot of things.
And she, again, I was watching something about that yesterday as well, about Star Wars. And she said very wisely back in the day when they were asking her about Princess Leia and having all these female characters and about George Lucas also bringing in female characters, she said that she wanted to showcase feminism. I don't think that's what she was trying to do, but showcase females in a way where it acknowledges that they're different from men and that the qualities that women have bring something else to the table, especially in these sorts of franchises, and that she was glad that George and the films were not trying to make women into men.
Yeah.
And then Kathleen Kennedy went around and essentially erased that bit and decided to do the exact opposite. But Universal also says they asked him to return, but he said no. They wanted to do mocap with him, but again, motion capture. But again, he said no. Mark and his extended family will continue to receive royalties. And we've also talked about what they did with Darth Vader, with trying to bring the voice in for, with permission, I guess.
But this is what I was saying about AI. They're going to have an easy time getting deceased actors' IP because the state owns it now, and a lot of estates don't know how to capitalize on these IPs. So when somebody comes to offer them a little bit of money, they'll usually jump at the opportunity.
Universal also says they are now pursuing other actors to portray the Luke Skywalker character in the future.
It's going to be hard to cast that role.
Luke Skywalker is being storyboarded for future projects. I don't think they should even just leave the characters be and bring in other characters that are not female, that are not Ahsoka or any of the other ones.
Now, this is just me thinking off the cuff. I was thinking earlier about this because I was reading through the Star Wars thing, and I was thinking, like, they had the little trailer on YouTube where they did like a 1970s style reboot with AI, but it just gets you thinking, like, they should shoot it low budget how the original was kind of shot. Don't use any CGI, and don't even shoot it in a modern context. Use older use the same style of equipment and make it even a one-off. If it's successful, then go from there, but don't plan out a whole universe. Just try to make one good movie. They're trying to plan out universes and sub-universes, and when one thing doesn't work out, they just keep on keeping on.
Because, I mean, they want to milk it till the blue milk comes out. But
what's blue milk?
Green milk. It was green, I think. Blue and green milk, it's, again, it's from the Star Wars universe. I forget what the creature's name that produces it is. I'm not a super mega fan of Star Wars, but I'm more of a fan of seeing the destruction they've done with the franchise because I think it's a learning opportunity for a lot of people. Yeah. But yeah, it's just one of the things that they brought in one of the newer films where Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, is milking, and it's different colored milk that comes out. Universal says they're now pursuing... Oh, no, I read that one. And Rafa says he should retire from social media, too.
Oh, that's the big thing he does. He did for a while because he went to Blue Sky, and that's basically a retirement. But now he's come back to X. I guess he's back. But that being said, we'll go into a little bit of production talk. We've been talking about microphones the last few days. We added some talking about action cameras and things like this. If you're going to go outside, do interviews, protest, action cams work good, not only to get the footage, but kind of as a security cam. But I do always recommend the cell phone as your best camera, whether you're doing photography, videography. Yesterday I showed the little hand grip you can kind of add to them. Everything I kind of talk about on the show I bought myself. I don't promote anything. I'm not sponsored by anything. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times I don't give the names, but I just kind of show products, and then you can do the research and find a similar product.
Because when we were starting out, we were trying to do a lot of this research, and surprisingly, a lot of creators don't like to talk about what gear they use, how they do certain things, how they learn to do certain things.
And the reason I do it is not for necessarily the pop culture audience, but it's a good opportunity for me to speak here because I do have time on this, but is for the political audience because independent journalism is so important, and I see that really growing. Everybody has a cell phone. If they would just pull it out when something is happening on the street, post it on X, other people pick it up, and it is a very powerful tool. But I do like to talk about, because I know a lot about production, because I built a full small YouTube production company here before we even started because my back was going out, and I decided, well, even if YouTube fails, if I own all the equipment, I can maybe make documentaries or something else. Okay, let's go.
And quickly, just before we completely veer off from Star Wars, Universal says Hollywood has always saturated anything that makes money and then oversaturates it until it doesn't make money. And they still haven't learned to not do that.
Okay, let's go into action cams. And well, again, I would not recommend an action cam first. If you have a cell phone, use a cell phone. I'm going to show you some cheap ways to use your cell phone as a different tool. Yesterday, like I said, I showed the hand grip that kind of turns your phone into a camera. At least it makes it feel like that because there's a trigger. It's easy to hold and you can easily adjust the settings. Today, I'm going to show this is called Small Rigs, the company that makes this, I guess. But it opens up. You can basically put your phone in here. And then you can buy a small little bracket that goes on the bottom. And then you can get something like this. This is for the neck. I have another one that goes on the body. But these are pretty easy to use. You would just kind of...
I always hate wearing that, but it is also kind of for safety because it's harder if you're at a protest or if you're outside for someone to just grab... If you're just holding your phone on a selfie stick, it's harder for someone to grab a camera off of you like that. And you can also capture a lot more footage and a lot more different angles and aspects and kind of just record nonstop to get moments that maybe you eventually wanted to add into the edit. But
yeah, but you have something like this on you. You have your cell phone on you, but this one's kind of high. But my other chest harness just goes, it's very simple. The camera would go lower. This neck one is actually a little bit better for these smaller action cameras, either this one or this one. We talked about both of these yesterday. These are DJIs. DJI actually makes the best action cameras. I used to use all GoPros and things like that, but they just don't compare. These integrate with your cell phone flawlessly, meaning when I want to mess with the settings or do anything, I don't have to look down at this action camera. I do everything through the cell phone. The GoPro just, it does the same thing, but it's very glitchy and things like that. These action cameras attach the same way as kind of the phone would, just like this. This works great as a security camera now. Say I'm filming with my cell phone doing interviews or something like that. I have this as a secondary camera. So it works very well.
For constant recording. And I'm not a huge fan of DJI because it's Chinese. But
it just
honestly,
works.
the footage when editing and stuff also does come out really well. Even the sound is a lot better than we ever had with GoPros when we were trying to use GoPros. I was going around filming an activist called Billboard Chris. I worked with him for a while.
Speak up a little bit.
I worked with him for a while with Billboard Chris. And yes, it's important to have small cameras. But then when I would review the footage, if the sound was clipping, everything was terrible if we didn't have specific microphones and stuff. So DJI, again, we're not paid by anyone. We're just talking so people know kind of what gear is out there, but it is some of the better ones.
Yeah. So what I was going to say was also we have these bigger, not these mirrorless cameras. I don't like bringing them out to protests and things like this. You have to set them up too much. If the lighting condition changes, even if you have the camera on auto, it's very noticeable when it goes light to dark. With these action cameras, they've just really mastered the technology within these cameras.
And they do overheat, but after like 3 hours. So they do allow you to do constant recording of almost your whole day out.
Yeah, and that's the thing about overheating. The DJIs don't overheat like the GoPros. The GoPros wouldn't even last an hour. Well, at least when I was using them, maybe they changed it.
Yeah, maybe they've improved.
Yeah.
Quickly, Universal says, I will share this. Viewership numbers for Star Wars are at all-time lows. Andor 2 now broke the record for being the least viewed Star Wars show on Disney Plus.
Oh wait, what was that? Andor?
Andor.
Yeah, and it's
Andor 2, like the second season. The previous record low was Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, and it's funny because Thunderbolts from the Marvel Universe was a good movie, but it crashed at the box office and lost money. And Andor season 1, it came back as it was good. And season 2, a lot of people said it was okay. I haven't seen season 2. I had a lot of input about season 1, and people just said it was phenomenal. They liked it. But even when they're making good shows now, people are rejecting them because they've burned the IP.
And Rafa was asking what GoPro model you used. He wants to buy a second-hand hand one for his motorized bicycle rides.
Oh yeah, I used to ride a Harley,
Yeah.
and these things are great. I would recommend DJI. This is a DJI Action. Action 4, but you can get the Action 3 as well if you want to get it cheaper on the used market. But these DJIs don't go with GoPro, go with the DJI. It just works better. And I don't like to always support Chinese brands, but they're connected with the Chinese military, and they very often put their best technology in these so they can make money off of it, and it will fund their military, I guess.
So,
but
because we're supporting what we complain about.
But it works phenomenal. You can't use this for your motorcycle because it's a gimbal. It will kind of move all around. But this DJI Action 4 works phenomenal. The Action 3 will work good as well. I would kind of stay away from GoPros. They notoriously overheat and things like that.
Yes, and Universal says, cool gadget in the biz now. They are using mini square handheld mics. It's the new thing now. Well, we talked about mics yesterday, but like consumer level ones. I didn't know they were using even smaller mics now for industry wise. But
oh yeah, and one more thing I would say is this little tripod here. This thing is
that one I couldn't find. But.
This one's not very small. But man, this thing is portable and it works great. It won't work for a bigger camera, but it works great for these action cameras or for cell phones. So basically...
So it's a monopod, but it has legs. So
boom. It's that quick. When I want to put it away, it's that quick.
Yes.
I also very often use it as a handle for my camera, so I can even attach a bigger camera and just have it as a handle. Again, it attaches the same way on here as it did on the neck thing. So you would just unscrew this, put that on there, and then you kind of got it. And this thing just works phenomenally. I very rarely need it, but when I do need it, it works great. Also, if I'm at a protest and there's a lot of people in front of me, but I want to shoot like everything or like an opening shot panorama view, I can just open it up, have the action camera or my phone on there and just raise it above the crowd. And then I can lower it down nice and slow, raise it up nice and slow, and it gives great cinematic shots. Sometimes it's hard to get those more cinematic shots, but you really need them in the beginning of your videos sometimes.
Yes.
So.
And it adds like, it makes it a bit more interesting and cinematic than just, a video of the protest. Quickly, we spoke about Small Rig. These are the phone cages. Again, we don't sponsor them. We don't recommending, but I want to show because someone asked yesterday to show the specific ones. But
I will say, rather than these action cams, getting a phone cage like this and utilizing your phone, because you're gonna every time I'm recommending something, like I have the other thing, like I have the action cam, I have the mirrorless camera. But the phone is by far the best thing almost always. Not always, like for the talking head, it's going to look better. But if you don't have the mirrorless camera, it's not that much of an upgrade. Just use your phone. Yeah. And that advice was given to me before I bought everything. And I wish I had listened to it a little bit more.
Yes, because you went head first. And then these were the DJI ones for the Osmos and the Pockets, and then the Action ones. Just showing it because someone asked to mention the names.
Yeah, and when I remember when I was kind of building this small YouTube production company, the amount of research I had to do was crazy because I didn't want to waste my money. I also got a job at a small electronics. It was kind of like a Walmart with a photo lab. I worked in the photo lab, and that gave me a 50% discount on everything I bought. Mm-hmm. And I just worked there one day a week to have the discount. But it was hard finding honest people that would give honest reviews. It seems like every content creator was sponsored by Sony or Fuji or by DJI. So you didn't know when they were telling the truth because they would hype up the product and then they would quickly go over the bad aspects. But it was hard to know if they were sponsored by them or not. And then you would buy the product and it wouldn't be any good or wouldn't be as advertised. Mm-hmm. So, I always did like content creators that were talking about gear they actually use. All this gear that I use isn't the newest, but it's what works for me. It's what I'm not sponsored, so maybe I don't have the newest gear, but this stuff does work, and the cell phone is the best thing. As far as cell phones go, if you can afford it and you don't know a lot about technology, I do recommend Apple. I used to use Huawei. I used to use Android. And man, the transferring of files and everything just didn't work well, especially with a small YouTube channel or production company. With the phone, it transfers seamlessly to the iPad, which transfers seamlessly to my Mac Air. And it just works with all the apps, integrate seamlessly with my switcher board and other things as well like that. So,
and we did when we did production for other channels and other stuff, photography as well. So it hasn't just been for this YouTube channel, and we've been able to test out the gear in different settings, like more commercial settings, and taking like real estate photography, and then also other kinds of podcasts outside of a studio, stuff like that. And then Billboard Chris also with protests, and us going to protests as well and doing filming there. But in a lot of ways, yes, the phone is just your best option.
Yeah.
And even you don't need even the newest.
Well, even with the phone, if you use the phone first to learn the fundamentals of photography, because you can use it in manual mode, when you do get a camera, it's not going to be overwhelming. Mm-hmm. When I bought my camera, I bought it for video. I completely failed. I had to learn photography. It took me like a year or two to get really good at it. And then when I transitioned back to videography, I had a fundamental platform to build upon.
And also with the phones or computers or whatever, like nowadays, we've talked about it as well, there hasn't been that big of a technological leap.
And there's going to continue to not be big technological leaps because the reshoring of manufacturing in the United States and other countries, the global supply chain is kind of breaking down. So the technological leaps I expect to be smaller and smaller over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And it seems like the technological leaps that are coming for online platforms, online computing and things like this. Okay, well, that's it for today.
I was going to say also, like, we both have cell phones that are pretty old now.
Yeah.
Like, I've had mine for years, and it was
mine's an iPhone 13. It works great.
I don't even know what iPhone mine is, but yeah, you don't need the newest stuff. Don't believe the hype.
Okay, thanks for tuning in. We got another show tonight at 9:15 right here. Let's live with Nat and the guy on our main set, and then Nat has her own show
in Spanish, Nat and the guy in Español at 8 p.m. Central as well.
Adios.
Bye.